Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and welcome to RegWatch on GFN.TV. This is the first segment of what will be an ongoing contribution to the important discussion around tobacco harm reduction at global scale. Joining us today is one of our favorite guests, Dr. Mark Tyndall, a public health and infectious disease physician who was formerly the director of the BC Centre for Disease Control in the province of British Columbia, Canada. And he's been working in the field of harm reduction and drug policy for over 25 years. Dr. Tyndall, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for asking me, Brent.
So our conversations here on GFN.TV are intended to reach a global audience, and therefore some of our viewers today may not be familiar with you from your past appearances here on RegWatch. Please share a bit about who you are, your work, and why tobacco harm reduction is a special interest.
Sure. I mean, I kind of fell into this through my other work in harm reduction. And at the time I first got interested, I was working in Ottawa, which was about 8 years ago. And my job there was to try and prevent people from getting HIV and hepatitis C who are using injection drugs. And it became clear to me that with the treatments that we had for these infections that I'd spent my career working on, they weren't killing people. It was smoking that was killing people. So the prospective cohorts I was working in, the leading cause of death by far was cigarette smoking, and so I got. With the lessons I'd learned from harm reduction, I started getting interested in alternative ways to get nicotine, and vaping was emerging at that time, and I've just been following this and trying to promote this idea now for 8 years probably.
So you're a doctor, as we kind of say here on RegWatch. You have patients you treat?
Yeah, well, that's been my career. I mostly infectious diseases, but I'm also a researcher. I have a doctoral degree in epidemiology, and so I've done my fair share of research over the years.
So let me ask you, when it comes to safer nicotine products, specifically nicotine vapes, what's your position?
Well, everybody should be using them. I mean, I'm very frustrated when I see the lack of movement on this. I think, like many of us, I believe this is the biggest contribution we could make to public health and improving the global health statistics if we could get people off cigarettes. And so I'm an ardent sort of anti-tobacco person, but I'm also very realistic that this is not going to be solved by like banning cigarettes. I mean, this is people use these substances like they use other substances. We have to accept that abstinence is not an effective way to get people off cigarettes for the most part. And so people deserve alternatives, and we could make a huge impact if we got people the right information out there and transition people off cigarettes.
So the big question, amazing that I still have to ask it, but are nicotine vapes safe?
Well, it's all, the biggest lesson you learn in epidemiology is relative risk. So, I mean, we're stuck with this ridiculous argument that, well, they're not safe. So therefore we shouldn't be promoting them. Well, that's just, it makes absolutely no sense. Relative to cigarettes, they're very safe. So, and the same kind of ridiculous argument goes that we really don't know how safe they are because we haven't seen them. We don't have the research. Where's the evidence? And man, again, we do have quite a bit of evidence that because tobacco has been so vilified, there's no external evaluation of any of this stuff. All we can measure is how toxic cigarettes are, but there's no money involved in actually doing the proper long-term research. But it's just so clear. And again, just try to be practical. We know right down to the molecule what's killing people with cigarettes and all the toxins in a cigarette or combustible tobacco. And to tell me that you take all those chemicals out and it doesn't make any difference, must be just as dangerous. It's just ludicrous. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. So the two really sticking points are that the public has not been told the truth about how relatively safe these products are, and we haven't incentivized people to try it, and we're stuck, this far down the road. The attitudes toward vaping among people who smoke cigarettes is just wrong. Like, most people just don't want to hear that they're safer, and we've been that's been a huge a huge misstep in the way we've tried to promote these things.
Now, obviously, are people becoming ill or dying because of this misinformation?
Yeah, well, there's just so much missed opportunity. I mean, because cigarettes and illnesses to do tobacco have been around for so long, we've just got so used to it. And any incremental improvement is, when we see in Canada that the smoking rates are, going down a percentage a year or something, somehow that status quo is accepted as being okay, and it's just not. I mean, we've just got so used to the massive health impact of cigarettes that we're just so complacent. And how we can still fully support abstinence-based programs that the only thing we know about them is how ineffective they are, and we need to offer people alternatives and to give them the truth. So I think there's been just a lot of really bad coverage about this, and people have not been given the truth. Again, we've been so preoccupied with youth vaping and this whole conspiracy theory that big tobacco is going to try and poison our youth with addictive nicotine products, and they're all going to go on to smoking, and we're going to start all over again. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it just doesn't, so far-fetched that I can't believe this has kind of been allowed to be the narrative.
Why is it that so many within public health believe vaping products are dangerous?
Well, I think I don't know if they do. Most people avoid the issue. If you say, the vaping eliminates all these toxins, I mean, it's pretty much impossible to make a mechanistic argument that that vaping causes cardiovascular disease. Like, how? Like, it doesn't. It doesn't. So but people don't really fixate on that, and I think you've mentioned this in many of your shows. I mean, they've kept changing the goalposts. That people can't really defend the fact that they are as dangerous, but they now focus on nicotine, and nicotine must be the dangerous thing, and we need to protect our youth and from addiction to nicotine. So they've that's changing the goalposts of things.
You mentioned nicotine, Dr. Tyndall. One of the things, obviously, that's going on is the gateway. That particular issue never seems to go away. It is whack-a-mole, there's no doubt. One minute it's teen epidemic, the next minute it's E-Valley, some mysterious vaping-related lung illness. I mean, when does it end?
Yeah. No, I mean, the gateway thing, I think, has been disproven so many times. I mean, we've, in Canada at least, we vilified cigarettes so much that it's just not an attractive thing for youth to want to do. And so to think that people would start using nicotine vape and then all of a sudden think that cigarettes would be a good idea is preposterous. It just would not happen. And unless we try to prohibit access to any vaping products. So that's the downside. But prohibition never works. And that's the whole E-Valley story, which set vaping back quite a bit, is basically a story of prohibition. And so we've allowed people started making this stuff up. and there was huge consequences to that. So we need a regulated, truthful way to get people access to this. Obviously, they should not be advertised as a lifestyle thing, and that or we're not there to promote vaping to young people. But we can really should be promoting it heavily to people who smoke cigarettes. And the other, the other irony of all this with our prohibition is that sure, youth will try nicotine. I mean, they'll try a lot of substances, and that's kind of why cigarettes have continued. The biggest thing, if we're really interested in youth smoking and youth vaping, then we try to work very hard on adult smokers to switch. And because the biggest reason that a youth will take up smoking is because they have their parents or aunts and uncles or other acquaintances who smoke. Like that's the biggest. And so if you really want to help the next generation, you would want to encourage parents who smoke to switch from get off cigarettes. That would be the best way to discourage the next generation of cigarette smokers, for sure. I think that people should have have awareness that if they start vaping or start using nicotine because they enjoy the nicotine, there's a price to pay, and that means you're probably going to continue to use that nicotine. I mean, I think that it's doesn't pose a long-term danger if you're using nicotine every day, but that's something people have to, should be approaching with the eyes wide open. I mean, but most smokers I know actually enjoy smoking and they enjoy the nicotine. So I don't know. I think that the irony is when the people that I deal with mostly day to day are people using harder drugs. I don't know where they'd be without nicotine. I mean, it's way better to get up in the morning and smoke a cigarette or use a vape than probably to run out and shoot heroin, I think. And this is all, it's a type of harm reduction for a lot of people. And if they weren't smoking, I don't know what else they'd be doing. But anyways, I'm a hard and fast anti-cigarette person. I mean, I really think that cigarettes cause a lot of damage and really unnecessary damage when we have alternatives for ways for people to get nicotine. And so there's really no reason that we'd want to burn leaves. I mean, we really need to think of this way more sophisticated, except that people will use substances like they like coffee and Coke and alcohol and all the things in our society. This is part of it. Nicotine's one of them. And we want to offer people a regulated, safe way to get it.
Have you ever been in a position where other public health colleagues that you've been working with have been very pro harm reduction for drugs like heroin? In fact, indeed, in Canada, we are actually giving that out now as a part of the harm reduction for drugs program, but yet they're adamant that nicotine harm reduction is not a valid use of the theory.
My colleagues in public health, definitely I'm still on the outside looking in as far as my attitudes and my promotion of tobacco harm reduction. And these same people will be very supportive of supervised injection sites and other harm reduction things that I've been involved in. And I mean, they've come along, like there has been a movement. I think harm reduction 25 or 30 years ago was still in its infancy. And there was a lot of concerns about enabling people and encouraging more people to be doing these things if we gave out needles and allowed people to inject in safety and things. But I think that's evolved over time. But my experience is there's still a hard stop with cigarettes because people feel that you should just stop. Like, we all know people who have stopped. Why don't you? Like, that's kind of the thinking, that we don't need alternatives for people. They should just stop. And that's and leave it at that. And I think that's still the attitude. Whereas people who are using heroin and cocaine and these other notorious drugs, people feel, well, maybe they can't stop. Maybe we have to give them a little bit of a roadway into stopping. But for tobacco, it's just hard and fast. Like if you smoke cigarettes, you're killing yourself. Just stop. And so it's I think that's the huge roadblock that people don't really see, that for the millions of people who that clearly is not true, they don't really look at it that way. It's just people don't need an alternative. Why would we offer people a nicotine alternative? Like they just don't need nicotine. Well, actually, talk to 5 million Canadians. They differ. They do think they need nicotine.
So let's talk a minute then about Canada and what's specifically going on in that country. Currently, nicotine vaping is legal in Canada. And of course, Canada has been a world leader in the fight against combustible tobacco. Yet Health Canada is in the process right now of potentially banning flavors. What's your assessment of what Health Canada is doing?
It makes no sense. I mean, the idea that all the focus is on youth and somehow only youth want flavors, which is totally against everything we know about the vaping industry in Canada, where flavors are a critical component to people trying it and continuing it. And why not? Like, it's just so punitive to me that it should be people's right if they have a flavor. Like it shouldn't make any difference. So Canada, but I do fear that it's been kind of quiet the last few months. It's unclear what the final decision, but everything I've heard that probably there'll be a flavor ban, or at least leave it open to provinces to make flavor bans, and provinces love it. So I'm really fearful that that could happen in Canada. And there's really, it's very damaging to people who are trying to transition. And again, the irony is that, Health Canada might say that, well, people, why don't we give them tobacco? That's what they're tobacco flavored. Well, actually, one of the ways to get off your cigarettes is to get rid of that tobacco flavor. I mean, we need to give people an alternative to that. So, I think it's really be a serious misstep if that happens in Canada. But I think the people that are getting the most attention still are anti-youth vaping advocates who still hold to this contention that the only reason that youth are using these vaping is because they like the flavors, and it's just not true. And but unfortunately, that's the narrative that's persisted.
I know you'll be speaking at the Global Forum on Nicotine conference in Warsaw, Poland this June 16 to 18. Why is a conference like GFN 22 important, and what might your message be?
To be honest, Brent, my academic and medical career has not really been in the tobacco area. So this is somewhat new to me. I know of tobacco conferences that are currently held in Canada and some globally that are basically abstinence-based. They haven't they are out there actively undermining safer nicotine, like that. So that is the forum that most tobacco people have. And I know for a fact, I've been disinvited to public health conferences because of my stance on vaping. So there's a very closed door. The forum, I think, is the only place that I know of that invites the range of opinions and has a wide tent for people to discuss this. But it's hard to find any kind of global or at least Canadian or North American tobacco conferences where you can openly talk about alternatives. It's a very closed shop that the most prominent people in this field have been at it for a while. They're abstinence-based, and they're not even open to discussing this. And instead of seeing alternatives as a way to improve people's health or give people other options, they look at it as a side door for more nicotine addiction and more tobacco use, and are totally dismissive of any benefits that people can gain from vaping.
Last issue, Dr. Tyndall, are there any potential allies in this battle that we should be thinking about and working with?
If we're serious about making a massive transition and actually eliminating cigarette smoking in some kind of time frame, we need to get on board with companies who make cigarettes and are very open, I think, to coming up with alternatives. So they probably do want to salvage their money. They're a company that probably aren't interested in just shutting down cigarettes, but they are probably very interested in coming up with safer alternatives. And so I think we need to help guide the tobacco companies who are still manufacturing cigarettes. And if you go to the website of Philip Morris International, I mean, they make quite a statement that they want to get out of the cigarette business by 2035. I think it's much like we do with climate change and trying to get into the oil and gas industry and help them transition. And they probably are open to it. But if we're just nothing but hostility and we just set ourselves up as, cigarettes are bad, the companies that produce them are bad, we want to wipe them out, it's going to be a long, long haul. Like, it's just not going to happen anytime soon. And it's just so unnecessary because the companies themselves will do all the heavy lifting. It wouldn't even be a big expense for governments. Like, they don't need to recreate this thing. The technology exists. The companies will transition. They need to be incentivized to transition for sure. But I think that's the only way that we're going to see in the next decade cigarettes go away in Canada. If we embrace kind of the new technology that can be offered through existing companies who make cigarettes. So I think that's the only practical way forward.
Allowing safer nicotine products to be a path of redemption for big tobacco.
Yeah, well, I think they can. I mean, they can. I mean, they're motivated by money, but the problem is, unless they're incentivized, some of these big advocacy pieces like flavors and taxes and things, that as long as they have a steady stream of cigarette sales, their motivation to really go after these policies are a bit stunted. They're not, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then we're selling a lot of cigarettes and we're making a lot of money, So I do think that they really need to be pushed and guided and incentivized and cajoled. And so I think they can be moved in that direction, but it's going to be a slow process if all they get is backlash from governments and government policies, and they're not going to go way out on the limb and jeopardize their cigarette sales. So they're going to try and play by the rules, and so we really need still strong advocacy to get them pushing harder, basically, to make these changes.